Hey guys, this is Rebuilding Rosters. This is a little thought experiment that I thought I would try during the off-season, which is a period that promises the potential to solve changes, potential to bring about certain promise of the allure of new and exciting prospects for teams. So what I'm going to be doing in this series is that I'll be examining certain teams that I feel is interesting in terms of the options that they can be looking at during the off-season, breaking down the team's playstyle, what they may or may not need in terms of their player acquisition strategy, and then looking at the potential prospects by doing some scouting myself to see if there are any players that can fulfill the criteria that these teams are looking out for. Now, for this first episode in the series, I will be looking at Origen, which recently finished 10th place in the LEC itself. Now, Origen was a team that was made to go to Worlds, and with the type of roster that they acquired, this was definitely the case from the very get-go, as they finished second in the spring of 2019, and then they had a dip in summer before returning to form in the spring of 2020, before finishing dead last in the most recent iteration of the LEC itself. Of course, Origen did not make Worlds, and in fact, for the way that they have acquired players and how aggressively that they had spent and approached the entire thing, with the way the casters and they themselves are hyping up themselves as well. The following record of 27 wins and 28 losses in Season 9 and 24 wins and 24 losses in Season 10 is hardly anywhere near acceptable. Big changes will definitely be coming to Origen. This is the end of the first big 2-year plan that they have. Most of the contracts are coming to an end. Most notably, Alphari, Xerxe, as well as Jactroll, will have their contracts expiring in 2020, whereas Nuke Duck, Upset, and Destiny will have their contracts expiring in 2021. Alphari in particular was touted as the star player of this team, putting up solid performances time after time. And while the contract renewal is definitely on the cards for some of these players, you can imagine that it might be hard for Origen to continue to hold on to some of these players, and I do believe that the organization will be looking for a strategic change in terms of player acquisition. Over the last 2 years, the big idea was to go for established names, going for known factors, players who have already proven themselves on the LEC stage, knowing what they would bring to the table and how they can contribute to the team. This ended up with Origen fielding a roster of experienced players that were effectively role players, trying to play towards a more larger picture of what they determined was the optimal way to play a macro game. That will probably have to change, as this is not proving to be a working factor, with the likes of Mad Lions as well as Rogue with their aggressive rookie strategies paying off big time in 2020 itself. Sustainability, flexibility, and development will be the focus for Origen moving into 2021, and these three words are things that they want to keep in mind as they move in over there. What we are going to be doing in this series is that we are going to play the role of Origen, and we're going to try to figure out and set some restrictions in terms of what we can be looking at. The first restriction that we're going to set ourselves is that we're not going to be acquiring or buying out big contracts. So we're not going to be doing the blank check technique. We will not be offering the likes of Faker or the likes of the Shy a blank check to try to bring them over to our organization. We will be looking at mostly free agents who will be available at the end of 2020 due to expiring contracts. And we will be looking at possible acquisitions even from wildcard regions. The other restriction when it comes to roster construction for Origen in itself is to maintain the identity of the team. So for Origen, have crafted themselves a rather penchant for being the macro team within the LEC itself. And to quote Giolotto, I would never deny the Origen part. If a football game has no goals, even though tactically it was super well played, it is still going to be boring to the fans. With Origen having a 2-0 record over G2 within the summer split itself, it is unlikely that they differ away from this playstyle, as it has brought them a certain degree of success. What they will need to be doing is to short things up to find some level of consistency in the way that they play. Needless to say, 2021, with the results that they have had within Season 10 in itself, will likely to be a rebuilding year, and the immediate goal for Origen with this new roster will be to make playoffs. Now, with this criteria set in mind, let's try to break down what kind of team style Origen has. Origen has a farm efficient team style that aims to match plays and cover dives in the early game. The mid game approach is to play for team fights, in which they play a 1-3-1, very farm efficient style, maximizing and prioritizing getting farm on everybody to be able to purchase their item power spikes. And once those are purchased, they would then look for team fights on the map itself. Origen tends to be a team that has a strong emphasis on playing for globals, and it is likely to be a team that picks triple TP across all three carry positions. Upset, who will likely continue to be a mainstay of a team, is a player who does best when he's given 2-item teamfight AD carries. His win rate and ability to contribute positively to the game is highest when he's playing the likes of Aphelios and Misfortune, which contributed largely to their 3rd-4th place finish in the spring split of 2020. Senna seems to be a slight exception towards this, but Senna does fulfill the same role of completing items and looking for team fights, similar to how Aphelios and Misfortune will be looking to take front to back or big 5v5 team fights in the mid game itself. When champions such as Kai'Sa, Xayah, and Tristana are in meta, this is when Upset will be able to perform his best. Comparisons to how Origen player can be drawn to how Gen G functions in most of Season 9, playing farm-centric junglers in the early game, largely inspired by the likes of Ambition, but back then they had Jactroll as a jungler to cover 4 lanes and achieve their skill in win conditions. And in the mid game, they function like Season 9's Royal Never Give Up, which played heavy team fights around a focal AD carry. But needless to say, Origen has their own reopen flair, and they have their own signature team comps and style of gameplay as well. This is most well embodied by the Karthus compositions that they play, with Gangplank at the top lane, Karthus in the jungle, Duke Duck playing some form of CC tank in the mid lane, and Upset and Destiny playing the same 2-item teamfight AD carry, as well as a CC support. The same formula can be used to describe Origen's playstyle as a whole, with a Bruiser or Global in the top lane, a farming level 6 jungler, a CC teamfighting mid laner, 2-item spike teamfight AD carry, and CC teamfight support. Keeping this in mind, if we were to replace the top lane and jungler due to the status of the expiring contracts, this is the scouting criteria that we will be applying. For the top lane, we will be looking for a bruiser heavy champion pool that can be played towards and facilitating stack and dive during the laning phase itself. We are looking for flexibility in the player's ability to respond to team's resource allocation. So the player that plays for Origen has to be somebody who is both capable of playing when he is allocated resources and able to convert it into leads, and is also capable of being a solid rock in the top lane who doesn't hemorrhage when the team plays away from him. And it's also equally important that this player's ability has the ability to generate leads via the side lane in the mid game. The jungler, on the other hand, we are looking for another farm-centric jungler, but most crucially, he has to understand map split and cross-map scenarios well. While being able to scout for a jungler is significantly more difficult and different from searching for that of a solo laner, the 2 things that we're looking for is developmental potential in the jungler, as well as a strong game understanding. To explore the top options that I have sorted out based on this profiling of Origen itself, we are going to be looking at a few options from the ERLs as well as from the minor regions. Aibo from Kick is definitely an option that Origen can be looking at. With a peak solo QLP of 1067, he has been able to achieve a lead for himself 62% of the time, and is one of the largest goal leads at 15 on average at plus 635. Token from Misfits Premier is also a strong candidate, where he has been able to secure leads more consistently for himself, being ahead of 15 minutes 70% of the time. The size of the lead tends to be smaller, and he also has a lower solo queue of peak rating of 700 LP. Exploring the minor regions from Turkey, Armut has been a regular mainstay at the top of the ladder of EU West, having a solo queue peak rating of 1,457 LP. And within the Turkish league itself, he has been able to regularly secure leads for himself, being ahead at 15 minutes 66% of the time, despite Supermassive not having the most stellar season. And he has been able to accrue a sizable goal lead on average, being up 587 goal at 15 minutes on average. Another consideration from the minor regions the Origen can go for is Topun from Legacy. While he does not play on the EU West server due to ping reasons, his peak during the previous off-season in Korean solo queue was for 900 LP, and he currently boasts the best stats of most top laners that have played a significant number of games, being ahead at 15 minutes 72% of the time, and having a goal difference at 15 of plus 686. But of all these options, there is currently an option in the LEC which will be my auto recommendation for Origen, and that is Xerxe's Oduamne, whose contract also expires at the end of this year. Playing in the LEC competition does give him a much lower statistics, and despite Xerxe having a overall negative record throughout much of the LEC this split, and this year for the matter, Oduamne has been able to be ahead at 15 minutes 66.7% of the time, a rather impressive feat. His solo cubic LP is 1,226, and the deal maker in this case is his ability to play Shen, which is the quintessential essence of what Origen is looking for in a top laner. Strong, stable, able to exert pressure on the side lane via split push, and has got globals to contribute to his team fights. For the jungler options, it is important to note that holding trials and interviewing will still be the key decision factors in determining the suitability of a jungler, and there's too many factors to look at when it comes to assessing how strong or good a jungler player is, especially when it comes to a team like Origen, where the jungler needs to fulfill a very specific role. One of the candidates that we're looking at is Elioya from the Movistar Riders, currently playing in the SLO. Graves and Kiana has been feature picks of his that has been able to give him a certain degree of success, and are champions that would suit Origen's playstyle rather well as well. He has a solo Q peak rating of 1,607 LP, and he has been a central part of Movistar Riders' success in the SL so far. Apologies for the graphics over there, but Arguin is the other option that can be considered as well. Playing the likes of Nocturne and Shyvana, these are also farm-heavy junglers that are capable of achieving what Origen is looking for. And he has a high peak solo QLP of 1,649. But he might not have had the best performances on stage itself. Arguin is definitely a dark horse option, and he has a track record of being able to facilitate top lanes, once in Kryze, and a second time in Kerberos during his time on Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition. The third option in the ERLs that we're looking at, who has shown some time in the LEC stage before, is Xerxe. Known for his Kindred play and demonstrating a strong use of the Sidrani so far in this year. His solo peak LP is 1,300, and most importantly, Xerxe has had a strong track record of finding success with similar teams, from his time at Fenerbahce to some of his time playing on the LEC stage with the main Misfit squad itself. An LEC option is also possible, with Jactroll fitting the profile in terms of what Origen might be looking for. Saturn Volibear were the mainstays of his champion pool during the 2020 summer split, and having played on the LEC stage already with a solo Q peak of 1,200, Jactroll is a strong LEC ready option. But of these 4 players, my current pick would be Xerxe, given his track record of success, with similar teams being the major factor as to why I think he would be the best option for Origen.